Good morning. I'm Randy Reed with the Washington, D.C. Arch Angels. We've got another edition of Breakfast with Randy. So, we're here to answer your questions about investing in early stage companies and also how do you launch an early stage company. So, I've got my friend Aaliyah Hulse, who's our associate as well. Good morning, Aaliyah.
Good morning, Uncle Randy.
So, what's on your mind? What would you like to hear today?
Well, there's so much to learn about investment, and I always want to start with something. But one of the things that I do in my business is we always set up ground rules. So I'm
Mhm.
wondering, are there rules in investment world?
Yes, yes. Every investor wants to put money into a company in hopes that they're going to make millions of dollars, right? Well, how do you do that, and how do you avoid a problem? Well, there is one rule that we always say is the number one rule of investing. Do you know what that is?
Um, I think it's not to lose money.
Yes, don't lose money. Number two rule is
Mm,
make money.
break even,
Yes, yes, break
break
even.
even.
Number three is make lots of money. And the fourth rule is make lots of money for your friends and the company and everybody else.
Oh, I like that. I like
Yeah, if
that.
you can get to number four, that's really good. Um, Now, that sounds kind of glib, like along the other lines of, oh, well, when you want to invest, low, sell high, right? Well, but most people actually lose money in the stock market. Why? Because they actually buy high and sell low. So the question isn't what is the rule, it's how do you apply the rule? How do you know how to apply the rule? Of course, you don't want nobody wants to lose money as an investor. So rule number one, don't lose money. Well, of course, that seems so obvious. So how do we not lose money? Isn't that the real question?
It is the real question. Like, what
Yeah,
do you do not to lose money? How do we know what to invest in, and or like how we don't lose money?
right. And there's no crystal ball, so we can't look into the future to determine whether this company is going to become a winner or loser. But just like anything else, you do some homework and you do some due diligence. I've seen people who spend more time researching a car than they do their investment in an early stage company.
Well, isn't a car an investment?
Yeah. Well, that's what everybody says, but really it isn't because it doesn't
Right?
earn you money. It
Exactly.
gives you transportation, but I always laugh about how salespeople will tell you, and maybe you're going through this with your sales program, is don't tell people how much something costs. Tell them that this is an investment. Like you're buying a suit, so this is an investment because you need this for work and it'll pay dividends somehow. Okay. Uh,
So one thing I learned about that yesterday, that's unethical manipulation.
oh, really?
Yeah,
That's
that's
good.
unethical. So
I'm
there's
glad.
ethical and unethical.
Good, yeah. That always bothers me when these salespeople say, "Oh, buy this watch, this really expensive watch, and because it's an investment." And it's like, no, it isn't. An investment is something that will earn you money. Okay, a car does not earn you money, a suit does not earn you money, and a watch does not earn you money. Okay, so, well, the reason why this is a good, timely question is we've seen recently WeWork basically implode, the big company of a shared workspace.
That's
Um,
right.
they were going to go IPO recently, and they were valued at like $63 billion or something. And when they issued their prospectus, everybody looked at this and laughed. And so they quickly lowered the valuation down to the 20s billion. I mean, overnight, they just lost $40 billion of value for some reason. Does that make any sense? No. Uh, and they withdrew the IPO. Now they're even talking that the company may go bankrupt. Uh, Nonetheless, SoftBank, which has hundreds of billions of dollars of investment, it's a Japanese firm, put $67 million as an investment into $67 billion of an investment into WeWork. And so they pretty much lost all that money. So don't feel bad if you lose your life savings because
Oh my goodness.
they can afford to lose it because they've got still like another $100 billion in their reserves or something. But how
Huh.
could they lose? Now the question is, how can you lose over $60 billion in an investment? I mean, this is just crazy. So the Wall Street Journal just did a recent article about the whole thing. So you know how well the director of SoftBank is this Japanese fellow. His name is Mr. Son, Son, and I forgot his first name. It's a Japanese name, of course. Uh, so what happened was Mr. Son met the CEO of WeWork, and after 10 minutes, he wrote out a check for $6 billion.
Wow.
After meeting him for
Mr.
10
Sun
minutes.
too.
I wish well, I'll meet with you for half an hour if I could get half that much money.
Deal. Deal.
You know, literally, that's what this guy did. He spent 10 minutes and he was so bowled over by this guy's charisma that he just thought, oh my gosh, this company's going to go somewhere. Now, I've been to WeWork. I've seen their things. They're not a technology company. It's just a real estate play. That's all it is. Shared workplace. Oh, sure, it's cool, it's hip, and they've got lots of early stage companies, which actually presents its own problem because early stage companies don't have the money to pay rent, and they go out of business quickly. So you've got high turnover rates. Okay, if you had spent 10 minutes of due diligence, you would have figured that one out. Uh, if you had just
Right.
shown up at WeWork, you would realize this is not a technology company. So, so how I don't know how Mr. Sun decided he was going to put in those billions of dollars, and that was just the beginning. And then he just put in more and more and more until he was up to over $60 billion in for it. So, how do you avoid those problems? That's a good question.
That's a
Uh,
very good question. That's the best, actually.
uh, well, how about starting off like when you buy a car, what do? You do a little research on the car, right? That make and model, what's the history of it, the past history. So just like with any car, you should look at a company. What's their past history? Have they made money? Have they spent a lot of money on launching? Too much money? Too little money? What's the CEO like? So you got to do a little bit of research here uh, and review the company. Uh, we always think that it's best to take a deep dive, meet with the investor, and talk with them. It's not enough to hear their pitch. Their pitch is only 5 or 10 minutes, and they're going to tell you it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. Okay, they always tell you all the wonderful good things. They don't tell you the dark side or the bad things or things like this. You, as the investor, have to ferret them out. So how do you ferret them out? It's like going on a date. The first date is a great date. They tell you how wonderful they are, but you want to find out, are they a psycho or ex murder or something? How do you figure that out?
It would be
Uh,
nice.
you so, so, well, when you go on a date, Aaliyah, what do you look for if you go out to dinner with somebody? It's a first date. Uh, you're examining that person. What are you looking for?
That's a good question. I'm looking for the same values, I guess, in a way. I want to make sure that it's not a psychopath.
Right.
I want to
How do
make
they
sure.
treat other people at the restaurant? Like a
Yes, I
waiter?
always look at the way they interact with other people. I want to see if they're a scammer, just like
Yeah.
business. Is that something that they do on a regular basis to get free meals or whatever it is? And then you see what their future likes,
Yeah.
brings or looks like.
Sure. It's the same thing with a company. What's their vision of the company? How do they treat other people in the company? Uh, because if they treat you badly and you're a prospective investor, or you see them treating their employees badly, how good of a CEO are they, or a president, or a leader? You have to be a good leader, right, to be a CEO. Uh, so that's one thing. is spend some time with the founder and see what's their vision, what do they really like to do, what do they want to do, that sort of thing. So that's just basic due diligence. Then you want to look over the company's uh, financials. Do they make sense? Have they spent too much money in product development, for instance? Has it taken them a long time to do it? If it's been taking them several years to launch the company, again, with biotechs or medical devices, sometimes it takes longer for them to do that. So that's okay, just whatever the industry standard is. But we've seen companies that launch within a month of founding, and they're starting to earn revenue. So that's great. So it doesn't necessarily take a long time. Uh, so a lot of this is just basic, what this is your money. How do you value your money? How do you examine the investment? Now, we can come up with a lot of rules, a lot of questions you should ask. But at the end of the day, you have to say, am I comfortable with this investment? Is this a market that's growing? Do a little research on your market. You don't want to invest in Model T cars of some sort, okay? You want to invest in maybe electric cars because maybe that's the future. I don't know. Are electric cars the future? These are questions we don't know the answers to yet. That's why these things are speculative sometimes. But a lot of times you can reduce the risk. If you're selling something like kombucha, well, is that a growing market? Are people buying it? People want foods that are less sugary, less sweet, more nutritious, organic. So those are growing markets. You don't necessarily want to come out with a new type of French fry unless that's the latest fad. So it's not that difficult. I just urge anyone who wants to be an investor, this is your money. How should you come up with your own rules? It's not that hard, but we can always take it in future sessions like this. We can do a little more deeper dives on this, but we can take apart real companies and put them through.
That would be great.
Yeah, but I mean, WeWork is a perfect example because anyone could have walked into one of their spaces and seen for themselves, is this a model that is workable? Okay, and just ask yourself hard questions. Get behind the hype. Promises. Every CEO and president makes promises. How much are promises worth?
Not much.
Not much at all.
At all.
I can make a lot of promises, Leah. I'm going to make you $1 million next year.
You promise, Uncle Randy?
It's a promise.
You promise? All right, next week.
Okay, and if you believe that, that's your problem. But
I'm actually going to go in and invest in $1 million next week. I'm going to promise them I'm going to bring it because Uncle Randy promised me.
Yes. So you got to look beyond the hype, beyond the promises. What have they really done? What have they accomplished? A good CEO will always under promise and over deliver. Okay, so have they done that in the past? And talk to people that they worked with. If you can't find people who've worked with that CEO, that's a red flag right there. Okay, I mean, anybody could have seen that this CEO of WeWork is a little bit crazy. He wanted to be president of the world, and he wanted to invest in some immortality type things. When people start talking like that, you gotta ask yourself, is this guy a little unbalanced here?
But it sounds like he was really good at sales.
Yeah, he was really good at sales, and he was also good looking. Okay, that's another thing the Wall Street Journal brought out. He was 6 feet 5 inches.
Oh,
So he's a towering figure. Okay, people love to see someone with real confidence, and that's where con men are always so good at this. A real con man will make you feel so good about yourself and so good about your money. So you got to get beyond the hype, but the promises. What's really going on here? Is this test out the product? If he's got a product, test it out yourself. Now it's a little hard if it's a heart stent that you're going to put into your heart, but you can talk to doctors and ask them what do they think of the product. Okay, so ask people in the profession if you don't know what it is. Well, maybe you shouldn't be investing in things you don't know that much about. But if you are, that's okay. Just talk to people who know something about it. So let's recap some of the rules. So so of course, don't lose money and make money and all that. That's great. But to put that into practice, one rule is do your due diligence, right? Yeah, look into the company and get beyond the hype. Number two, don't accept promises. Just disregard them. Pretend you didn't even hear them. Okay? Look beyond the promises and look to see what has the CEO actually accomplished. Number three, spend time with the president and the CEO and push them a little bit. See how they react to a hard or a tough question. Okay, if you ask a tough question and the CEO gets very defensive, well, how do you think it's going to happen when the market treats you badly? Okay, if you can't handle a person asking you a tough question, how are you going to handle it when the sales go down because the market's changed or something? Okay, so there's all these little techniques you can do for psychological things. But anyway, push the CEO. Spend some time. How do they treat people? How do they act as a manager? All those things will go a long way to just doing some basic due diligence. Don't jump into a deal. If it's a good deal today, it's a good deal tomorrow. So don't feel everybody wants their money right away. Okay, they can wait for a little bit until you make your decision and do your due diligence.
I like that. I like that. A lot of people think, and it's the way that you're sold as well. It's like this matter of urgency. If I don't do this right now, I'm going to lose the deal tomorrow.
I know. And to me, that's a big red flag. Whenever I hear that from a salesperson or somebody like this, I would say, oh, get out of here, because they tell that to everybody.
Exactly.
Or, I really like you. I'll give you a special deal. You don't hear that so much in early stage companies, but that's another thing that really drives me up a wall. I just met you. We're not friends. So don't tell me you're giving me a special deal.
Because that means you're telling that to everybody.
Exactly.
Very good. Are there any more? Because we're running out of time.
Well, we can always, you can always go deeper, of course.
Okay.
There's lots of good questions you should ask. One of Dan Logue's favorite questions is there was one time an investor was about to put money into a company and they went to the signing. They were about to sign the agreements and the CEO wasn't there. And he asked, why isn't the CEO here? And they said, oh, he's in jail. Is that a problem? So ever since then, that investor always asks, is the CEO or any board members currently in jail?
I mean, wow. Think of that, right?
You never know. So yeah, the questions you can ask are endless. At some point you have to make a decision, but you hear these stories and they happen. So again, it's your money. You should be comfortable with it. That if I'm giving you this money, will I ever see this money back? Right. Are you going to lose it all, or are you not? That's the question. So at the end of the day, it is a good question. You should always ask yourself, if I give you this $100,000 or $50,000, do I have the confidence that you know what to do with it? Or are you going to spend it on a Porsche or some fancy car? Yeah.
Hope we get a piece of it.
Yeah. So it's different for every investor what they think is important and how they evaluate a company. But that's one of the reasons why we do workshops. The Washington, D.C. Arch Angels will be having a workshop in January. And we teach these things, how to do due diligence on a company. So we urge investors to learn as much as they can before they put their money in.
Absolutely. And if people learn how to sell, people learn how to write, people learn how to, they go to school for MBA, why wouldn't you learn how to invest your money properly
Absolutely.
into the right company to make sure you don't lose it? So that's I really like the fact that we are doing workshops, and I'm looking forward to it. And I'll put information on the bottom of this video.
Yes, yes. So stay tuned. We'd love to see any of the viewers at our workshops. They're for entrepreneurs and investors, because at the end of the day, both sides need to learn all the same things.
Absolutely.
Right? We always like to say entrepreneurship and investing is two sides of the same coin.
Oh, I like that. Well, thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Ilya.
Thank you for tuning in to Breakfast with Randy, and we'll see you next week.
Great. Thanks. And send us your questions.